People used to treat me like I was nothing, as if my existence was a question mark in their minds. My name is Marcus Tate, a black CEO navigating the polished terminals of a Georgia airport on a sweltering Thursday morning, feeling the weight of stares that range from skepticism to outright disdain. As I stood in line for my first-class seat, dressed sharply in a tailored suit, the invisible barrier separating me from the other travelers became painfully apparent. The moment I approached the gate, Cheryl, the gate agent, gave me a once-over that suggested I should be boarding at the back of the plane. Her voice cut through the air, dripping with condescension, as she questioned my right to fly first class. Embarrassment flooded me, amplified by the smirks and whispers of bystanders, but I held my head high, steeling myself against the tide of judgment. Little did they know, my company had just acquired the airline. Once aboard, another passenger, Mr. Haran, took it upon himself to challenge my claim to my seat, his tone laced with entitlement. I refused to back down, feeling the tension in the cabin stretch thin, yet nobody intervened. The silence spoke volumes. This was not the first time someone like me had been asked to step aside. When we landed, I checked my phone to find news of the acquisition. Empowered, I confronted Cheryl and Haran, revealing my true identity as the airline's new controlling stakeholder. Their disbelief mirrored the shock on my face years ago, but now I held the power. I would reshape this organization, ensuring that my journey would inspire hope for those who felt invisible like I once did. Success is not just personal triumph, it's about creating a legacy that champions those who will follow. "Sir, but I don't see your name on the first-class list," Cheryl said, her voice dripping with condescension as Marcus approached the gate. He felt the heat radiate from her judgment, the stares from the people lined up behind him sharp enough to cut. "I'm in first class," Marcus answered, keeping his composure. "Here's my boarding pass." Cheryl glanced at it briefly, then looked back at him, eyebrows raised. "This must be a mistake. We can't have you in this section. It's reserved for—" "King for whom? Just say it, Cheryl," he interrupted, his frustration bubbling just below the surface. The nearby white male passenger smirked, crossing his arms as if waiting for a spectacle. "It's reserved for paying customers, sir," she replied, her tone dismissive as she raised her voice for all to hear. "And you don't look like one." The quiet gasps from the line fed into his mounting humiliation. He stepped aside, fists clenched, words trapped in his throat as others streamed past, their eyes filled with judgment. Disbelieving whispers trailing behind him. "Look at him, probably just another load management issue, Mr. Heron piped up once they boarded, glaring at Marcus. "You're in my seat." Marcus inhaled deeply, squaring his shoulders. "No, I'm in the seat that's mine by right. I have every right to be here." Engulfed the cabin as a weighty tension filled the air, all eyes looking between them. The crew didn't intervene. In fact, they avoided eye contact altogether. One black passenger nodded slightly in solidarity, their shared suffering palpable. Then, as the plane leveled out, Marcus's phone vibrated fiercely. News of his company's acquisition flashed across the screen, and with that, the power dynamics shifted. Moments later, he confronted Cheryl and Heron at the gate. "You know those seats you thought were only for certain people?" he said, a confident smile creeping onto his face. "I'm now your new chairman." The color drained from Cheryl's face while Heron stammered. "I didn't know—" "Of course you didn't," Marcus shot back, satisfaction blooming. "But I plan to change all of that." The chatter of the airport seamlessly blended with the murmur of frustration coursing through Marcus Tate. Standing in line, anticipation hung thick in the air, punctuated by the sharp glances of passengers around him, all too eager to reduce a successful black CEO to mere stereotypes. The weight of their scrutiny settled heavily on his shoulders on that sweltering Thursday morning. As the gate agent, Cheryl, scrutinized his boarding pass, a sneer crept across her face. "Sir, this is a first-class line." The inflection in her voice dripped condescension, echoing throughout the terminal. Marcus could feel eyes narrowing in judgment, the collective belief that he had somehow overstepped a boundary boiling just beneath the surface. "Excuse me?" he replied, voice steady, despite the sting of embarrassment blossoming in his chest. The murmurs from the crowd surged, an unwanted audience watching his humiliation unfold in real time. Marcus stepped aside, his composure tested as others passed, feeling the dehumanizing heat of the moment stretch infinitely. Glum on the plane, another passenger, Mr. Haran, asserted his privilege, challenging Marcus's right to the seat. You sure you're in the right spot? The back has plenty of room, he sneered. Marcus's heart raced, yet he held firm, refusing to let his dignity retreat. Silence enveloped the cabin, an unspoken agreement among passengers to let this standoff unfold unchecked. Tension simmered in the air, only relieved when Marcus's phone buzzed with news. A pivotal acquisition of East Wind Airlines was complete, and with it came a new identity, one that held the power he never realized he possessed. As the plane landed, the dawning sense of control surged through him. Stepping off, he approached Cheryl and Haran, the surprise evident in their flustered expressions. "I'm the new controlling stakeholder," he stated, the words subtly transforming the atmosphere. The thickened with disbelief, marking the moment when the tables turned. Marcus felt the gravity of his realization settle in. He had finally had enough. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling a wave of clarity wash over him as the plane soared above the clouds. He refused to let the humiliation at the gate define him any longer. As the flight attendant completed the safety demonstration, he turned to the only fellow black passenger nearby. "Thank you for your silent support back there," he said softly, but with an edge of confidence. The passenger nodded, a shared understanding evident in his eyes. "You've got more power than you think," he replied quietly, as if they were allies in a battle yet to unfold. When Mr. Haran, the passenger in the seat next to him, leaned over with a patronizing smile, Marcus straightened in his chair and met his gaze unflinchingly. "Excuse me, that's my seat," he stated simply. The quiet strength of his voice turned heads. Some passengers shifted in their seats, sensing the undercurrents of tension. "Are you sure? I mean, it's first class," Haran scoffed, his condescending tone grating against Marcus's newly found resolve. Marcus leaned closer, his voice unwavering. "I'm absolutely sure. I belong here just as much as anyone else." The awkward silence that enveloped them felt electric, sparking a shift in the atmosphere. For the first time, Marcus realized he wasn't just a passenger, he was a force to be reckoned with. He held on to that clarity, reminding himself of the acquisition news. When he emerged from the plane, the moment he saw Cheryl, he felt a surge of adrenaline. "You didn't believe I belonged in first class? Well, I'm now the chairman of this airline." The shock on their faces filled him with an unmistakable thrill, a realization that he could change the narrative. Marcus Tate stood with his travel bag slung over one shoulder, attempting to mask the rising tide of anger within him. As he moved toward the first-class boarding line, he caught the condescending gaze of Cheryl, the gate agent. "Excuse me, sir," she began, her voice cutting through the busy airport like a knife. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" The words echoed around him, and a hush fell over the line as the scrutiny intensified. The blood rushed to Marcus's ears as his cheeks burned with humiliation. He felt each gaze laden with judgment. "Yes, I am," he replied calmly, though his heart raced. Cheryl hesitated, glancing around for validation from onlookers, then persisted, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You can check the back of your ticket. It might clear up any confusion." The embarrassment was suffocating, yet Marcus remained poised, knowing that exploding would only reinforce their doubts. Silence hung thick around him until a fellow black passenger nodded in support. The airplane cabin was tense, filled with unspoken affiliations and alliances, as he confronted Mr. Haran, who jostled for Marcus's seat with a smug grin. "You sure you should be here? Might want to settle in coach." With quiet confidence, Marcus retorted, "I absolutely belong in this seat." He held fast against the tide of condescension until the plane landed. His phone buzzed with breaking news. Marcus had just acquired East Wind Airlines. The world shifted around him. As people disembarked, he sought out Cheryl and Haran, his heart a crescendo of fulfillment. "That was a bold move you made back there," he began, revealing his identity as the new majority stakeholder. Their expressions turned pale, disbelief morphing into embarrassment as realization dawned. With Marcus at the helm, training programs for inclusivity would ensure that no one would face what he endured. As he walked away, the disturbance of their tarnished pride lingered in the air, a silent victory for Marcus and others like him. In that moment, a hint of a smile crept onto his face. He had triumphed, not through fury but with grace, carving out space for a brighter, more equitable future. As I gaze back on that tense moment at the airport, the sting of judgment still lingers. a reminder of how easy it is to underestimate someone based on appearances. I stood there, composed yet profoundly affected, confronting not just a gate agent, but a bias deeply rooted in our society. It was a defining experience, one that transformed my understanding of power dynamics and resilience. When I revealed my identity as the new chairman of Eastwind Airlines, their shock was bittersweet. Vindication for me, but a stark reminder of the biases embedded in everyday interactions. The journey taught me that standing firm against prejudice isn't just about self-assertion, it's about challenging the status quo and inspiring change for others who might find themselves in similar situations. As you reflect on this, I wonder, have you ever felt marginalized based on your appearance or background? Do you think I went too far in confronting them? I invite you to share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Together we can engage in a meaningful dialogue about power, bias, and the journey towards justice.